the lower registers can be warm. Here there's also sort of a nervous energy from the triplets especially. Glazunov is setting this dark quality in the beginning because overall with this concerto he's going from darkness to light over the course of the entire concerto. Again, borrowed from Beethoven and many others who did this, going from tragedy to triumph or going from darkness to light, per aspera ad astra, sometimes it's called in the Latin. So because he's going to get to a very bright, very jubilant finale, he's setting it up with a very different kind of contrast in the opening. It's almost like he's carefully constructing the solo violin part so that he keeps striving higher and higher and higher in register. And then eventually adding harmonics. The G string on a violin is warm and rich and full-bodied tone. He starts both the first movement and the second movement with this tone. In fact, the andante melody at the beginning of the second movement really is a sort of variation of the opening melody of the first movement. And I think he did that on purpose so that to sort of confuse some of the really musically astute listeners who would be thinking, is this the development section? Because that sort of sounds like the theme of the first movement, but it's not. Again, it sort of plays into the idea that it's all an organic whole. The composer is careful to save the brighter key signatures for the finale. I think this is a really interesting thing that he did. Because starting in movement 1 in A minor, one would expect the second theme of the first movement. You would expect that second theme to be in C major. That's what a normal sonata form structure would dictate, or possibly another major key like that. But he probably thought that C major, so early on in the piece, would be too bright. It would be too much of a victory, too easily achieved. And so he went for F major. It's still major. But there's a little bit of darkness of the flats in the key signature, just a little bit. Much later, after the whole slow movement interruption, the second theme comes back. It appears. You would expect the recapitulation of this to be in A major, but he wants to save A major, which is one of the brightest of all keys, for the finale. So he doesn't do it in A major, he brings it back in B flat major. Just that slight difference up from A to B flat has a totally different color, and B flat, again, sounds a little bit darker. There's a moment before rehearsal number 13 where he offers just a brief hint of A major to sort of plant the seed and keep the music moving forward. And then, of course, there's the whole choice of key of D flat for the slow movement, which is really unusual for a concerto in A minor. But it's brilliant and daring, considering the fact that string players don't usually favor keys with a lot of flats. Because of the tuning of their open strings, a lot of violin concertos and other concertos for string instruments are usually in D or A or G or so forth. And it's because those are the strings that are going to ring very resonantly on their open strings. But playing in a lot of flats is actually hard for strings. Glazunov, who would have known all this as a composer as well as I think a string player himself, chose to do the second movement in that sort of dark, personal, almost romantic key of D flat.